It's causing quite the stir, so let's talk about it. The Mosul Orb, shot by an MC12 US Spy Plane over the city of Mosul, Iraq, on the morning of April 16, 2016. It's an official DoD photo, possibly intentionally disclosed. Is there a pattern? Let's explore. Hi everyone, and welcome to Project Bluebook, where we explore all things unidentified. I am Thor, and thanks for tuning in. 2023 has already started off with more sightings reported and more official information released in the first month than ever before, and reports and sightings keep coming, according to the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, January 2023. On the 24th, we had a disclosure event, again orchestrated through the hands of Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp, this time a single photograph, not classified, originating from a short video clip, classified, shot over the city of Mosul, northern Iraq, at exactly 9:47 a.m. Universal Standard Time on April 16, 2016, on board a U.S. spy plane, the MC12, flying at 27,000 feet over the city of Mosul. It shows an orb following the spy plane for more than a few seconds at a lower altitude but maintaining a matching speed, distance, and heading. The image originated at the Department of Defense and was included in a classified briefing video on UFOs shown to multiple U.S. government agencies. It was, according to the Daily Mail, who first received the photo before anyone else, produced by the Pentagon's Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force, or UAPTF, recently formed. These are the guys that stood before Congress in the open hearing on the topic of UAPs back in May of 2022. And by the way, this just in, UAPTF has now been replaced by yet another office within the DoD, a topic for another episode. The clip, shot using a full motion video setting on a DGS-1, which, if I recall, is the exact same equipment that shot David Fravor's TikTok over the Pacific off the coast of California in 2004. The DGS-1 is capable of collecting multiple data files, not just light capture video, but infrared and other data while filming the UFO. It observed the orb following the spy plane, and consistent with other UFO and UAP sightings, it showed no signs of propulsion, wings, propellers, or other means of engineering known to man that enables a craft to fly through the air in an intelligently controlled manner, unaided by outside forces. And that is not just my opinion. That is a statement from the DoD. According to an intelligence source, the video was sent to the Joint Base Langley Eustis in Virginia, where imagery and electronic signals intelligence experts studied it for the benefit of the U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM. But CENTCOM forces have been deployed in the Middle East, including in Iraq and Syria, since 2014. This still frame was shared with Jeremy Corbell by the DoD, possibly through an intermediary, and Jeremy has become a consistent and repeated source of disclosure as a first-hand or a second-hand recipient of the information, including the video famously shot on board David Fravor's Navy jet, as well as the footage of a UFO that turns USO shot off the USS Omaha, again off the coast of California, in 2019. Analysis of the Mosul Orb photo has confirmed it is indeed flying over a neighborhood in Mosul. This is based on image recognition software study of the rooftops and street details shown. It is a confirmed neighborhood of Mosul, Iraq. It is flying from south to north within the city, which makes the position of the sun and the reflection of sunlight consistent with a southerly position behind and south of the orb and the spy plane. It is not a puddle on the road, as has been suggested by skeptics. It is clearly in the air, at a distance much closer to the plane than the surface, evident by the obvious blur as the DGS-1 spy camera remains focused on its mission to video record in focus the surface of the city. It is an orb-shaped craft flying through the air, and it has a reflective spot on top of its dome, consistent with the light and shadow reflected off of buildings and rooftops. Jeremy Corbell couldn't hide his take and excitement on the magnitude of this event.
Big sonic booms have happened. Our government is officially affirming to the American public that UFOs are real. They're unidentified, flying with impunity through our restricted airspace. And now we know from the release that George Knapp, my mentor in journalism, and I released that over a conflict zone, you have one of these spheres, metallic spheres. It's a UAP or UFO official designation by our military and intelligence communities. We wanted to share this. It is inherently unclassified, although it is contained within classified briefings. But the image itself is unclassified, so we can put it out. But this is happening on a daily basis off of east and west coast of the United States of America. But now we know this is the first time people get to see an official government-filmed UFO, or UAP as they call them, from a conflict zone.
It comes on the heels of a second report released in January by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence that states 510 cases of UAPs have now been studied through August 30th, 2022. That report included several testimonies of servicemen in the Middle East during the Iraq War, as well as dozens of videos where US spy planes captured metallic orbs mimicking their flight paths, chasing them, flying around them, doing loops and circles, operating at between 20 and 25,000 feet. In one report, a serviceman stated, quote, "An operator will be zoomed in looking at a town in Syria, and all of a sudden, a little orb will go flying through the viewfinder. The operator's like, what the hell was that?" End quote. He then starts focusing on it, and just by watching the orb, he concludes it's intelligently controlled, with no signs of propulsion. It's not an enemy drone, not an aircraft with wings, or propellers, or rocket thrust, and it's not gliding. He goes on to say they sometimes could watch it for up to a minute before it would just suddenly bolt off the screen in any direction at incredible speed. As with David Fravor's video, the accrual of testimony shows interference, presence, and demonstration of abilities, observed visually by multiple servicemen and recorded with electronic equipment, radar, and DGS-1 imaging devices. These are multiple physical and instrument sources. When taken into context of sightings over missile silos at Malmstrom, Whiteman, and elsewhere, not to mention abductions of citizens, they do represent a national security threat, especially if it were true that we don't know what they are or have clarity on their intentions. Avi Loeb, Harvard physicist and director of the Harvard School of Astronomy, agrees UFOs are a growing threat and offers up that the government, quote, doesn't know squat about these objects, end quote. Let's listen to Avi Loeb.
The fact that they talk about it publicly means that they have no clue as to at least a third of the objects that they are seeing. Now, the government is not a scientific organization. The intelligence agencies are mostly concerned about the national security, the safety of military personnel. So they want to figure out, are these spy drones, for example, that were sent by China, or are they something else? From a scientific perspective, it could be a mixed bag. It could be human-made objects, it could be natural objects, but even if one is of extraterrestrial technological origin, that would be the most significant discovery of humanity.
Now, here's where I turn to conjecture, based on the available information, admittedly incomplete. Here goes. If we take the history of recent disclosures, dating back only 3 to 4 years, including the release of the 2004 David Fravor video, the 2019 USS Omaha footage, and now this still photograph, authenticated by the DoD as a real UAP, while only stating it through an intermediary, while overseas we have multiple governments releasing information, including the Mexican government releasing a video showing multiple UFOs observed by the Mexican Air Force. The Brazilian military has released some of their findings. The list goes on and on. If we take this body of acknowledged releases of information only over the last 3 to 4 years, even if the reference data is sometimes 20 years old, it points to a change in position by our government's representatives, offices of defense, intelligence, and science, which I am perfectly comfortable stating that Avi Loeb is partly correct. It depends on what we mean by the government. Our elected officials, including presidents, are temporary, and they are on a need-to-know basis. Evidence suggests there's another layer, a network within government agencies and institutions, utilizing rules of conduct legitimately in existence, such as national security secret classifications, following orders, not questioning your superiors, and that's all just in the public sector. In the private sector, your sometimes lucrative livelihood is at risk. When you break an NDA agreement, you have violated your employment agreement. It is a very human and understandable condition not to speak out. This second invisible network has run the programs of misinformation, denial, research, and development for decades, and they are the reason we find ourselves in such an absurd dichotomy of disjointed realities between what we have proof of in the form of mountains of circumstantial evidence, testimony, whistleblower accounts, photos, videos, and physical artifacts, as well as bodily injuries, against systematic denial and explanations away from the obvious, until just recently. Which brings us back to the Mosul Orb. There's a pattern evolving. It involves trickle disclosure, and it goes something like this. Hey, before we state anything, let's create a new outfit, and then rotate the outfits frequently, so as not to pin any specific office responsible long-term for withholding information, making statements for new information or old information for that matter. It used to be ATIP back in 2012. Then it was UAP Task Force. Now let's call it All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, ARO. Since Project Bluebook to ATIP, the statement that the government wasn't investigating is simply not true. It was through the National Security Agency. Read Richard Dolan's work on this topic. But right now, let's trickle out selective information. Let's also rename the whole body of unexplained phenomena anew. Let's call it a UAP, an unidentified aerial phenomena, because we don't have to recognize it is an unidentified flying object. It's a phenomena. Besides, UFO is loaded with meaning, including alien secret programs, crash retrievals, abductions, communications. Today, I speculate, it is this complex history that needs redressing, retracing, and this has been recognized. Perhaps it's an effort to catch us up anew, without blame, in a controlled way. Because it doesn't and can't start with a statement saying, hey, we've been lying to you for decades. We're coming clean now, and here's what we know. What then would follow would be a month of education, a massive information dump, a toxic data rain pouring onto the entirety of humanity, whether we're ready or not, where life as we know it would come to a standstill, and where some of it might just never start up again. That scenario is a no-go. And that's not how this retracing of the steps that we are now witnessing, in my conjecture, is taking place before our eyes. Instead, it's rather a systematic trickle disclosure that says, rather humbly, hey, we're recognizing these UAPs are real. Some of them, they don't look like anything we know, have built, or know our enemies have built either. They're not drones, they're not ours. We don't know what it is. Let's remember Avi Loeb's statement. The government doesn't know squat about these objects. Making sense, doesn't it? Regardless, it's a disclosure, spoon-fed as it is, very little and very late. Does it point to an event that we are being prepared for? On the outer fringes of unsupporting gossip in the arena of ufology, and I am not judging where facts end and speculation begins, here and now, But there's this story floating that we're about 5 years away from a disclosure event that involves landings and visual, physical confirmation of the existence of intelligent alien entities and their craft on the surface of this Earth, in front of humanity. This keeps cropping up and is worth looking at, even if we've been disappointed before. A topic for another episode. Right now, all I'm suggesting, we might be on a ramp of information release, possibly accelerating in weeks, months, and years to come. Let's stay tuned. Definitely. You can watch and listen to this and other podcasts on Project Bluebook, where we explore all things unidentified. Each day, let's practice compassion and kindness. And please subscribe. I am Thor, and thanks for tuning in. See you next time.